that's not what we're here to talk about today. Instead, we're going to talk about why did that guy get the first aliyah? Why did Harry Ryan get the first aliyah today? Because he's a Kohen, right? And we are in the parasha that trumpets Kohanim. We discussed in our reading today all of the even special aspects of the Kohen Gadol. You see, there's a hierarchy, right? There are the rest of us, and then there are the Levites, and among the Levites there are the Kohanim, and among the Kohanim there was at any one time a Kohen Gadol, a singular leader for the members of the Kohanim that had the special clothes and the special job. But that wasn't how it always was. Think for a moment. What happened before the appointment of the Kohanim? Who were the Kohanim? A word which in Hebrew literally just means priest, the officiant of a religious activity. Who were the Kohanim before the children of Aaron were the Kohanim? You got to have some more distinction than that. The firstborn. According to rabbinic analysis of the rest of the earlier parts of our text, the firstborn were designated to be the Kohanim. After all, it is the firstborn, when they do the Pidyon Haben, when they do the redemption of the firstborn, are essentially redeeming themselves from otherwise having to serve as one of the Kohanim, which now they are no longer allowed to do. But the rabbis looked back through the past and they said, who were the earlier proto-Kohanim, the earlier leaders of our people, well, of all the people, who would be in charge of offering the sacrifices? And they said, well, it would have started with Adam, with Adam. And from Adam it would have gone to Shet, to Seth, from Seth to Methuselah, from Methuselah to Noah, from Noah to Shem, from Shem to Abraham, Abraham to Isaac, Isaac to Jacob, and Jacob to all of the firstborn of the 12 tribes, meaning all of the subsequent generations would have had their own officiants. No one sees a problem with that list? Those are almost never on that entire list, the firstborn. When you look back through the list that the rabbis give of who was the Kohen Gadol of the earlier generations, it's very, very rarely the firstborn. Who was the firstborn of Adam and Eve? Cain. Well, why didn't he get the job? Because he was a brother murderer. Right? That kind of disqualifies you for serving as the representative of humanity before God. It's not good on the resume. Trust me, you're out of the running. Who was the firstborn of Terach? That's a harder one. That's Abraham's dad. I'll give you a hint. It wasn't Abraham, and it was Nahor. So he was the firstborn, and he is again, well, certainly not a brother murderer. Was not exactly seen. He was an idolater, and clearly, if you're going to choose between somebody who's an idolater and Abraham, who had come to the realization of God's existence and unity on his own, you're going to go with the spiritual superstar, Abraham. Who was the firstborn of Abraham? Ishmael, right? But the covenant was not designated through Hagar, it was designated through Sarah. And therefore, Isaac became. Who was the firstborn of Isaac? Esau. But I said Jacob. There at least we have a clearer explanation. Jacob bought the right. Right? He purchased the job, if you will. Something that was a notorious problem in the later days of the Second Temple. And so on through the generations, it seems that more often than not, the so-called firstborn rule didn't actually work so well. And in fact, we see this reach a point of culmination where the people who thought they should be the Kohanim, the people who thought they were the firstborn, who then should be in charge, before all of the ceremonies that we read about had been finalized, before Aaron and his children had actually been appointed, something that won't happen until we get to the book of Leviticus, what was the beautiful act that all of these other officiants performed? The only other time we hear of a sacrifice being offered in this section of the Torah. I'll give you a hint. It's shiny and it moves. The golden calf. The golden calf is the only other sacrifice that we hear of during this time period that would have been performed by the firstborn. The one right before that we would have known about is the sacrifice for the Passover offering that was done in the land of Egypt. But once we had left Egypt and now we were on the road, they all joined together, sure, to sacrifice to the golden calf. And at that point, says our tradition, God went, all right, enough of the whole firstborn or the Kohanim thing. We're going with Aaron and his kids. We're done. We're not looking around. We're not wondering this one, that one. We're not just going with random firstborns. We're picking this family. The Levites remained loyal during the golden calf episode, and therefore we're going toward the pinnacle of the Levites, Aaron and his children, and that's why Harry got the first Aliyah, and also, by extension, why Judy got the second Aliyah. No one here is going to challenge me on this. But Aaron was right there during the golden calf, right? That whole line of reasoning, which is what the rabbis do indeed present as the reason why we switched from firstborn to Kohanim, seems to ignore the fact that Aaron, and I apologize to the Kohanim in the room, Aaron was like the ringleader of the golden calf incident, wasn't he? He was the one who built the altar. He was the one who built the calf. He was the one who declared the holiday. He was the one leading everyone. So why in the world, if everyone else lost their right to be the Kohanim as firstborn, why would you pick Aaron of all people, who was at the center of this escapade, to be the true replacement along with his family? So Moses couldn't do it all by himself, perfectly fine. But are you saying that just because he was Moses' brother is why he got the job? Is this divine nepotism? God is saying, or Moses went to God and said, you know, God, we're good buddies. I wonder if you could help me out. I got a brother. He's a bit of a, he's one of those. But if he could find an important job where he gets to wear fancy clothes, but nothing actually with too much responsibility. We think this was divine nepotism? God was just helping out Moses with his incompetent brother? God does not work like that. Instead, we have to look at what was Aaron's actual role during the incident of the golden calf. What was his actual participation? What did he do? So he eventually throws the people under the bus and says, yes, they told me. But when we look back at the text, he is right. When we look back at the text, and our rabbis lead us through this in much more detail in the lengthy Midrashim, Aaron actually stood between the people and God. That is to say, he did try to hold them back, and he did try to, in a way, hold back God by mitigating the guilt of the nation. He did act as an intercessor for both of them. The people came and said, Moses is gone. Rah! They're going bananas. And we need to have a new God. We need to have a new leader. Now, Aaron might have also felt a little hurt that they didn't say, we need a new leader. How about you? Instead, we need a new leader. How about an idol? He was just upstaged by an item rather than another human. A little hard, but he handles it. What does he say? He doesn't say, great, let's carve one. He says, bring me all your gold. Basically saying, are you willing to put your money where your mouth is? Hoping that they would say, oh, wait. This is going to have a price tag? I thought religion was supposed to be free. You want some money from me? In that case, you know what? Why don't we wait another couple days for Moses, see what happens? Unfortunately, the people were very gung-ho. Israelites do have a lot of passion when we get worked up. So they were more than happy to contribute. And then what happens? It says that Aaron builds the altar. Why would Aaron build the altar? Because he was worried that if he let them do it, it would be done too fast. You've all heard the expression, many hands make light work. Aaron instead said, no, I'll take care of the altar. One rock. Another rock. Trying to buy more time. And when the altar was done and the people are now conveying the blood of a sacrifice, or perhaps of others. There are indeed interpretations that Hur, who was one of the other leaders, had already been killed by the mob, and Aaron was buying time so that there would be no more bloodshed, because certainly idolatry would be better than murder. He says, tomorrow we will have a celebration. He doesn't say right now, he says tomorrow. Again, putting off the transgression for another day. And to whom is the celebration going to be dedicated? To Adonai. Adonai. Something that is often overlooked in our remembrance of the golden calf, because it seems so counterintuitive, is that Aaron subtly shifts them towards Adonai, even while using the idol. He subtly moves them from their complete abandonment of God to violating the rules against idolatry, but doing so in a way that still directs their passion towards Adonai, so that at least in this transgression they are not completely breaking all connections with God. Unfortunately, the people do show up the next day, and unfortunately they go through with the offerings. But when our sages were analyzing this passage and analyzing Aaron's role in it, they say, look what he was willing to do. He was willing to stand in front of the people. He could have washed his hands of the whole situation, to use a bit of an anachronistic analogy, and walked away from the people like the other Levites, and just gone into the other corner and said, oh, I don't know what they're doing, but when Moses gets back, they're going to be in trouble. But instead, he said, look, if no one steers this mob, if no one tries to direct their craziness, they are going to murder, and they are going to sacrifice, and they are going to break into the pantheistic idolatry that is normal for Egypt or any of the other ancient cultures, and we will lose them completely. And they will do it in a rush without any chance of being redeemed. But if I can stand in front of them, even as they are surging forward towards their transgressions, their sins, and just slow down their progress, maybe I can buy enough time that Moses will return. Maybe I can at least prevent the worst of their impulses from being physical and real. Maybe. And our sages say, and God said, that's the guy I want in charge. Not because he's perfect and, lily white and never done anything wrong. Certainly, it would have been better if he'd been able to find a way to prevent this from happening at all. But because he was willing to stand between the people and God. He was willing to be an advocate on behalf of God to try and slow the people, and he was willing to be an advocate on the people by taking upon himself some of their guilt so that they would not have to bear it. So he would be the one who made the altar, not them. So he would be the one who made the idol, not them. So he would be the one who officially did the sacrifice, not them, so that when push came to shove and God came back, God would only be able to be angry at him. In a sense, he sacrifices himself to prevent them from committing the worst sins with their own hands. And that, God says, is what a Kohen should be. That is what a priest should be. Somebody that works on behalf of God and works on behalf of the people. Not somebody in the rarefied mind of Moses, who is in many ways losing touch with the nation around him. Not somebody who is a demagogue giving in to the passions of the mob and simply riding along the way. But somebody who is willing to love the people enough to try and slow them down in their craziness and to prevent them from having the full punishment they might deserve, because you can prevent them from doing the worst of what they are thinking. This doesn't make him a perfect character, but it makes him a beautiful character. This makes him somebody who we recognize when dressed in all of this finery and glory, that his true adornment is the fact that he loved the nation enough to step in front of this hurtling crowd and try and blunt it to the best of his abilities. And that is ultimately why the Kohanim were chosen from among the children of Aaron. They should be people who loved peace, who find reconciliation, who try to bring the nation together, rather than simply serving because they were the firstborn, but instead looking back again and again to this person, this moment, this experience of being a Kohen means bringing peace to the nation. May we all be able to learn from Aaron's words. May we all be able to act as a Kohen, even if not a Kohen. May we remember that Aaron, for all of his flaws, knew that peace would be what would bring our people to the next stage of their journey. Shabbat Shalom.